Hello everybody and welcome to Let's Play Limbo. I decided to do this Let's Play for a few reasons. For one, the game is fantastic and obviously it was met with a lot of critical acclaim and audience approval upon its release. You can count me among the people that consider this to be basically a masterpiece. Secondly, it just came out on PSN as well as Steam, so there's a whole new audience that this game has opened up to, and I figure a lot of you are probably interested in being entertained by the game in case you can't play it for whatever reason, or you might need help, you might get stuck somewhere. So hopefully somewhere along this Let's Play I can be of service to you. Finally, the game's relatively short, so I figure maybe I can actually finish a Let's Play for the first time in a long time. Without further ado, let's start Limbo. So we're going to press any key and then go to Start New Game. So this is not my first time playing through Limbo, which I think will actually lend itself well, because I won't be dying all the time. This is a game that, although short, is actually fairly difficult. So as we start here, you can see that we control this glowing-eyed protagonist here. Looks to be a small boy, maybe an adolescent. But in any case, the main thing you're probably noticing is the distinctive art style. And this was kind of what the marquee of Limbo was upon its release last year on Xbox Live Arcade. The entire game's done in this kind of silhouette format, but it's not just defined by that, even though it does look beautiful. There are also a lot of really well-designed and physics-based puzzles in here, but we'll get to those a little bit later. First thing first, if you're playing this game on the Steam version, you can go to the left at the start instead of the right, step on this egg, and you'll get an achievement if you haven't already unlocked it. But anyway, we're going to move to the right to continue the game and actually get things started. The game starts off relatively easy, and the first few puzzles are not going to be too much of a challenge at all. Let's talk a little bit about the production or the reception that Limbo got. So this was developed by the Danish studio, always make that mistake, Playdead, and in particular was designed by a fellow by the name of Arndt Jensen. I believe this is their first major title, and in any case it's definitely their marquee title. Originally, it came out in July, exclusively for the Xbox via the Xbox Live Arcade distribution system, but after their one-year exclusivity agreement went up, they came to Steam second, and PSN just before that, if you understand my kind of confusing language there. And it's a great thing that that exclusivity arrangement did go up, although 1 year was a hell of a long time to wait for a game in particular like this, one that's this fantastic. The game does a great job of creating an atmosphere and a mood, and I'm going to do my best not to spoil that, but considering I am narrating over the entire thing, it's going to be almost impossible. But, you know, at least understand that if you play the game has a much more introspective tone than, you know, if you're listening to some idiot just rant on top of it for 20 minutes. So we come to our first kind of puzzle here, and they introduce the ability to drag objects. So we're going to drag this boat so we can actually get up to that next level. Can't just do it by ourselves. There's no double jumping in this game. Our character is fairly limited in his physical abilities. But, you know, we can jump from vine to vine like that, and then we'll climb up this rope and continue on with our journey. The game is very vague about what you're doing and why you're doing it, but the basic premise is that you're trying to find your sister, and that's all I'll say about that, because really, that's all the game says about that too. So a little bit more meta talk about Limbo as we come up to this first puzzle. One of the most striking things about this game, for both myself playing it for the first time and the lots of reviewers, is the brutality of the deaths. And I'm actually going to show some of the deaths in here, just to show that, you know, the game looks beautiful right now, but one wrong turn, and you're treated to something pretty gruesome. This makes the game pretty goddamn scary. I believe it won Scariest Game of 2010 from IGN last year, which is pretty crazy considering it was the year in which Amnesia released as well, and obviously that game caused pretty much everyone who played it to shit their pants. So it's just a testament to the mood and the tension that Limbo creates. So when this game came out last year on the Xbox Live, it was during the summer of arcade on Xbox Live, and it was kind of a smash hit right from the get-go. I'm not sure if that was because of the art style in particular, or maybe just because of the fact that the game had such a positive critical reception. It was basically unanimously hailed as the next great indie game, which is exactly what it is. Drew a lot of comparisons to Braid upon release, and, you know, the games are pretty similar. They're both puzzle platformers with very distinctive art styles, and very, very well-designed puzzles, I'd have to say. Oh, watch out for this. I almost got Indiana Jones there. The game is not very lenient with respect to your deaths. There's a lot of trial and error, and in fact, I believe the developers themselves classify this game as a trial and death game. I made a short video about Limbo earlier in which I compared it to Dragon's Lair, and I think that comparison holds up. You basically go into a situation not knowing what to do. You'll probably die a couple of times trying things out, and then eventually you'll figure it out and you can move on pretty consistently from there. Although there are some puzzles that require a fair amount of execution, or a fair amount of skill in your execution, I should say. This one is not one of those puzzles. This is one that's pretty much entirely based on thought. It's good that they put this here, though, pretty early in the game, because it introduces the idea that you need to use elements that are kind of not always in your field of view in order to solve some puzzles. So there we had to walk past this vine, drag that box back, and then get up on here. But once we do that, assuming you're a little bit better at doing this Donkey Kong Country swinging thing than I am, whoops, we can swing on this rope and then start to move upwards through the treetops, which will enable us to actually create a kind of raft in order to get across that river, which would have otherwise been impossible to traverse. Let's make sure we get it right this time. Alley-oop. Alright. Now, the game, like I was mentioning before, was pretty much a runaway success upon its release on Xbox Live Arcade. It was the third best-selling title of 2010 on the service, which is pretty significant. On the top of my head, I can't remember which ones beat it. But in any case, it is a pretty strong accomplishment. I know that it was just ahead of Castle Crashers. But it sold about 527,000 copies at $15 or so, which generated about $7.5 million in revenue for the company. Not too bad for an upstart indie studio. It's also the 11th best-selling Xbox Live game of all time, which is pretty significant. To put that in perspective, it's sold more copies than games like Super Meat Boy, Plants vs. Zombies, and Peggle. And I hope that I haven't seen any sales figures for... make sure to push this. I haven't seen any sales figures for Steam or PSN, and it'll probably be a long time before those are ever released. But hopefully it does well, because, you know, as much as I like the Xbox Live service, I dislike the idea that they've kind of railroad developers or publishers into signing increasingly long exclusivity agreements. I think these games also work really well on PC, where there's a bit of a larger audience. Yet another reason the game kind of scares the shit out of some people is the inclusion of nightmare fuels such as this spider right here. This is kind of the first puzzle that usually trips people up in the game, because it's a little bit esoteric or abstract in its design. Oh, just get him to attack me one more time, or try to attack me, I should say. But once you figure it out, it's actually pretty easy. So if you were paying very close attention, you should have seen a bear trap on top of that branch up there. But if we get the spider to attack us a couple of times, it'll jostle the bear trap down, and then we can start to inflict some damage on him as long as we're clever. So we'll wait until he's getting primed to attack, put the bear trap in the way, there's one leg down. Well, let's try this again with his second leg, basically just rinse and repeat. Three hits, straight up Legend of Zelda style. Oh, attack there. You gotta be careful about that one. And don't get too close, or the spider will attack you. Or it's like there's a spider leg behind the tree. It's important to keep note of that. Otherwise you could find yourself in a world of hurt. But now, we've murdered 3 legs off of that spider, so it decides to just cut its losses and run away. But trust me, that will not be the last time we see it. But as we move on here, the atmosphere will get a little bit darker and much scarier, particularly as we move on throughout the game. So this is now available, like I said, Xbox Live, PS3 via PSN, and Steam. And I can only speak for the Steam version. I don't know how much it is on those other distribution networks. But the Steam version is presently $10, and it just came out about a week ago. I noticed that it was selling really well in the top sellers section, so I hope that continues to be the case. So you can see I got stuck in the spider's web here, and this moment is really horrifying the first time you're playing through the game. So I hope if you're watching this for the first time and you haven't played the game, well, I'm sorry to have ruined the surprise for you here, but actually this is not a death. This is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So the spider's going to wrap us up in a little bit of his web here. Again, pretty much straight up nightmare fuel. This happens in a lot of movies where like a giant spider will wrap people up, or like an alien will cocoon them. Always big fear of mine, right? Really realistic, too. As an 8-year-old kid, always scared that the aliens from Aliens were going to wrap me up in their sticky goo. So if we just swing along here, we can go down here and pretend to be Casper the Friendly Ghost for a little while. So as this cocooned individual right here, our movement is a little bit limited. We can't run. We can just sort of do bunny hops. And pretty soon, the spider is going to start chasing us, and that's going to be harrowing, but once you know what to do, it's not too bad. Just climb over this gap. The first part of the game is mostly geared around teaching you the platforming elements and a little bit of the fundamentals. Once you get into maybe like the second, third of the game, I would say, things get much more interesting with respect to the puzzles, and they get actually really difficult, which is why I kind of thought a Let's Play was multi-purpose. It's entertaining, hopefully, I'm doing my best anyway, and could be helpful for those of you who are playing the game but have gotten stuck at certain parts. So here we're going to do a little bit of reverse Indiana Jones here. Actually, this always reminds me of Trials HD, another great Xbox Live Arcade game from 2010, where we've got to roll along this ball, and we pretty much just got to stay on top of it. We'll be safe. And if you can look on the left side of your screen, you can see the spider is starting to come to us. But as long as we stay on top of the ball, I think we'll be okay. I don't think we necessarily have to risk our lives to speed up. The game's pretty good about not giving you too many challenges to face at once. So we're close enough, don't actually have to get right next to it. Then we'll slide down here, and these thorns will actually cut us out of our spider prison so we can move on unimpeded. So the first act of the game, I would say, you could almost call it the spider act of the game, because he's going to be our main villain, but that does not, in fact, continue throughout the game. Things get pretty creepy at this moment, because we start to see the bodies of other people who look like us, perhaps indicating that other people have come across this quest as well, but have failed in it, whereas we are trying to succeed. They do a really good job creating kind of a scary atmosphere for these people. They're usually eyeless, and you have no idea what their motivations are, why they're dead, or sometimes why they're trying to kill you. But let's do a jumping puzzle, and actually the game does fairly few of these, so this one's kind of a nice little touch. Obviously, if you fall down into the hole, you're going to find yourself in trouble. But let's jump on this stick to break it, I think. Yeah, and then run away before we get smashed. That is a moment where I could probably guarantee most of you will die your first time playing through the game. If I remember correctly, we're going to jump down here, and then something is going to swing at us, and then we're just going to jump over it. So let's see if I remember this appropriately. Kind of a close call. Anyway, let's move on through there. I believe we're going to meet the spider again pretty shortly after this. I'm playing this entirely through based on memory, but like I said, the game did only come out on Steam about a week ago, so it seems to be pretty fresh in my mind so far. And here you think we got some kind of robot spider that we're going to run into, but in fact, this is not the case at all. We'll just walk by it, and we can see that there's some douchebag kid manning the controls. We could do it ourselves if we wanted to, but not really necessary at this point. So we'll jump across this gap. That gap is pretty much the longest that we can jump in this game, so it's good to take note of that. Oh, okay, I forgot about the burning tires. So naturally, the douchebag kid that tried to kill us with the robot spider is now rolling tires through an inferno in order to try to murder us. What does this dick have against us? If you make it through that, you'll be okay. And then you realize that the kids are actually kind of pussies in their own right, so they'll just run away from you. For whatever reason, they're frightened of you. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they do have good reason to be. The game is kind of rife with symbolism if you're the type of person that's willing to look at it. I'm not necessarily insinuating that those who choose not to are making a poor decision. The game obviously stands on its own merits just with respect to the game design and the puzzles and the gameplay. But I do believe there is some literary or, deeper symbolism, should we say. Oh, my first legitimate death. I got trapped in a machine that looks like it was made for the Saw movies.